All right, chat. Let me show you how I read a newspaper article, and I'm generally curious if you guys do the same, or if you think that my method can use some improvement. But the way I like to read an article is first and foremost see which publication it comes from. And I noticed with a little bit of sadness that most people they look at a publication and they either outright dismiss the article or they fully embrace it without any critical thought. And I think that both of these methods are incorrect. They don't really allow you to understand the world around you. The way you're supposed to do it is to wonder what type of person reads the New York Times. Who are their core audience? Is it edgy teenagers? Is it people with TikTok accounts? No, the answer is that the people who read the New York Times are usually upper middle class people. A lot of them can even be business owners or they can invest on the stock market. And they consider themselves to be educated. They consider themselves to walk into proper circles. And so when the New York Times writes an article, you have to take into account that they're trying to sway those people. Like the article is not dedicated for Trump supporters, it's not dedicated for young voters. No, it's dedicated for the upper middle class progressive city dwellers. Okay. So once you understand that, you have to wonder what is the message here? What are they trying to convince this group of people to believe? And you read the title. No, you don't actually have a right to a bank account. And so this is a clickbait title to a certain extent, but then you realize, hold on a little bit, the New York Times doesn't really rely on clickbait. They're not that interested in that type of tabloid thing. And so why would they write such a clickbait title? They're writing it to cause indignation, right? Like they want to cause outrage amongst their readers because human beings don't like to be told no. They don't like to be told they're not allowed to do something, especially if they know they should. And so from the actual title, the reader is already outraged. They're like, what do you mean I don't have a right? Even if they don't want to have a bank account to store crypto, because this is what the article is about, even if they don't care about it, well, now they do just because they were told no. It's a story as old as the Bible. You know, Adam and Eve in the garden, they're told they're not allowed to eat an apple. Well, all of a sudden, everyone, but why not? Why can't we eat it, right? It's part of human nature. It's part of human psychology. And so the question is, why exactly does the New York Times want to convince the left that debanking is a thing? Well, the reason for it, and you get to see here right in the beginning, they're talking about how debanking used to exist up until now for private prisons, fracking operators, and gun stores, right? So they admit that up until now, debanking was a thing, but it was kind of tied to the culture war. It only affected people that were part of the right wing. It affected the bad people of society, and bad in the way that the leftists see them, right? Like the gun store owner, the leftists see that as a bad person. The private prison, the leftist sees it as a bad person. The fracker, right? And so they're basically saying that, look, up until now, debanking was used against bad people. People that you don't like, people that you shouldn't care about, people that if you are sympathetic to, you would get hit with guilt by association. And so up until now, the concept of debanking, and we get to see this, it's being used in quotations. The concept of debanking was just part of the culture war. It was a far-right conspiracy theory. Because we educated middle-class people, we value free markets. And so we believe that a bank has the right to do business with whomever they want. And we're going to ignore the fact that banks can just work with each other, become a cartel, and then decide how the economy goes. Right? Like this happened up until now. But what they're now saying is that, look, even Elizabeth Warren is now complaining, and the reason she's complaining, along with other Democrats, is due to the fact that it's affecting the crypto industry. So now it's affecting something you care about. And this is pretty much how this entire article is structured, right? Like, this is how they're trying to persuade, to reprogram, if we will. Like, this is the patch update for the leftist NPC, who up until now was told that debanking is a far-right conspiracy theory. Now this article is actually saying, all right, new patch notes, new meta, we're allowing you to talk about debanking. It's now part of the overtone window. Because once you understand how the left operates, you also know why this makes sense. You see, the left doesn't believe that debanking is a far-right conspiracy theory. They're just supposed to act as if it is. They're supposed to play the part. They fully understood why debanking is wrong. They fully got why debanking is effective when used against the right. But it was used against people they don't like. And now what the New York Times is saying, it's like, look, this tactic that was used against people we don't like is becoming dangerous because it can now be used against people we do like. And so we gotta shut it down. That's pretty much what this article is about. It's trying to reprogram people. The people are being reprogrammed in the sense that they believe the New York Times. That they believe that up until now, debanking was just a myth. It never happened, or if it did happen, the people on the right just didn't understand free market. No, they were very much aware that it was a weapon, a tactic that belonged to leftist ideology to improve their interests, and it was used against their opponents. However, now, because Trump is in power, because the Republicans are in power, it's becoming a problem. And so we should stop using this. We should all come and agree that it's a bad thing. And so this article is not just for the upper middle class leftists, but it's also for the banks. It's basically telling the banks, hey, self-regulate yourselves, because else we can actually convince our people to believe that it's now a bipartisan issue, and then we will get the government to regulate you. And so let's not go to that route. So we notice a change in culture, because up until now, the banks could discriminate you for literally whatever they felt like, except for your race, or gender, or sexual orientation. But now they're basically saying, all right, let's start looking at the banks as if they're electric companies. And I think that there's several reasons on why they want to make this a bipartisan issue. The first one is that, as I mentioned before, right-wingers are in power, and now they can crack down on trans activism. Now they can crack down on LGBT groups, teacher unions that are pushing certain ideologies on kids, right? Like, they can now use the banks in order to enforce right-wing orthodoxy. And the left is aware of this, right? Like, because they did it themselves. And so they're like, holy shit, you know, like, if this power goes to our ideological opponents, well, it can really hurt us. So let's come to the table. Let's be like, all right, let's have a truce. And the right-wingers have an interest in stopping this, because if you think politics 10 years in advance, you know that people in charge rotate. Like, now it's the Republicans, but surely in 16 years, it may be the Democrats again. Now we have an opportunity to actually fix this. Yes, they used it against us. Yes, it fucking sucks. But now we actually have an opportunity to make sure that this doesn't get used again. Because debanking is actually horrible. You know, it's a modern version of a prison, if you will. The Soviets, when they wanted to punish political dissidents, they would lock them in a gulag, right? But the modern way is no gulags. There's no need for them. If you don't have a bank, you can't get a job. You can't take care of yourself. You can't pay rent. You can't run for office. You can't protest, as we saw with the truckers in Canada. It's almost as impactful as if you were made to disappear. And in a social way, you kind of do. And then you notice that the activists can take advantage of this. You don't have to pass legislation which bans guns in America, which would be unconstitutional. But you can make it hell on earth for gun owners to operate. You can simply just get Visa and MasterCard or various banks to stop doing business with them. And all of a sudden, you're cracking down on the problem. You know, the porn industry can go the same route which is probably what a lot of leftists are going to be interested in right now. They're going to be like, okay, if they're coming after crypto and the right-wingers, just like we went after the guns, they can come for erotica, they can come for our 50 Shades of Grey, or whatever, the wine moms that read the New York Times care about. And so they're going to mobilize. They're not going to sit there and take it. They're going to say, all right, well, let's do something. And so the other group of people that this article is dedicated to is the bank owners themselves, or at least the people that write policies for the banks. And they will say, look, this is a shot across the bow. They're basically telling us that now it's a bipartisan issue. It's not just a right-wing talking point. And if we don't start regulating ourselves, they will regulate us for us. And it's a lot more profitable if we just make some common sense internal regulation so that in the future, when there's someone else in office, we can change it. But if it's legislation, if it's the law, we can't change it. We lose control. And so the other group of people that will see this article and will get the memo are the people that are running the banks themselves. And so if you wanted to know how people get reprogrammed, how they go from you need to stay at home, stay safe, keep your business shut down, we need to save grandma, and then the next day they're like, we need to go out, protest for civil rights, BLM, Black Lives Matter, and then the next day, back in homes, everyone locks up, maximum safety, we need to save grandma again, and then it's to war, Ukraine, right? This is how it's done. Like, you need to understand the outlets, the mainstream media outlets, who their readers are, who their target demographic is. You need to understand that it's not about being offended, it's about pretending and acting offended. And these marching orders pretty much tell you it's now acceptable to talk about this in civilized society, or it's now banned to talk about this in civilized society. And people, they don't look at it with principles. They don't look at, is debanking a thing that should be banned on principle? They're mostly looking, how does it hurt my enemies? How does it promote my ideology? And so if it's hurting their enemies, they will immediately try to find out the quote-unquote principled arguments that they claim to believe in. And they will say, well, yeah, I mean, it's free market. The banks have a right to do business with whomever. Also, I forgot to mention, before ending the video, there's another reason that I think they want to crack down on this. The introduction of CBDC, the central bank digital currency, right? Like the digital dollar, the digital euro. In China, you have the digital one. They still want to push for it. And in order to push for it, they need the trust of the public that, okay, hold on. If we are to push for a cashless society, then what guarantee do we have that we're not going to get debanked? Because in a place where, you cannot pay outside of a cashless system, getting debanked is just the same like being sent to prison. Probably worse, because at least in the prison they feed you and they clothe you. And so they're going to say, well, hold on a little bit. Like, shouldn't we treat the banks as utilities then? Shouldn't it be like the electric company? Because like the electric company can't decouple you because they don't like your opinions. And so what they're probably trying to do is to get the banks to regulate themselves, to create the illusion that, well, now they can't discriminate until maybe, the Democrats go back into office. And then since it's an internal thing, since it's an internal policy, it can also be changed internally. I personally am in favor of banks being regulated in the sense of they should be treated like an electric company. And that they shouldn't debank anyone for whatever reason whatsoever. I don't think that the bank should have like a public image. And it's like, no, they should offer a service the same as electricity, because we're in 2025 and you cannot live in a first world country without doing financial transactions. The government should find out ways to crack down on bad people and terrorists and whatever without having them debanked. Like, just because you can't debank someone doesn't mean you can't trace where the money came from. If it's an illegal activity, get a court order from a judge, find out where the money is coming from, trace it, arrest the people responsible. Like, there's other ways outside of debanking. I think debanking is a very dangerous thing. I don't think it should exist. On this, I do agree it's a bipartisan issue. I'm glad that leftists are waking up, but I hope that it's not just going to be an internal thing where the banks just, immediately change a couple of internal policies and they're done. I do hope that it's actually going to be legislated and put into law that every citizen has a right to a bank account, which is what the title is, right? You don't actually have a right to a bank account. Well, maybe you should. Maybe every single person should have a right to a bank account. Let me know what you guys think, though. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.